Story 1, Aita for not spending this Christmas in the hospital with my daughter. My 39F daughter, 16F, has had a sensitive stomach ever since she was a kid. There are certain foods that will upset her stomach to the point where she's unable to stop throwing up. We've seen countless doctors, but so far nobody's been able to give us a clear answer. The only advice we keep getting is to identify all trigger foods and cut them from her diet. We have a pretty good idea of what those foods are: soda and other carbonated drinks, chips, Cheetos, and other similar processed snacks, anything oily or fried, and most sweets. Unfortunately, this is exactly the kind of stuff my daughter loves to eat the most. And as horrible as she feels after she has them, she still refuses to cut them out of her diet, which in turn led to her spending a lot of time in the hospital during the past few years. When she was little, it was easier to keep all these foods away from her because I simply wouldn't buy them. But now that she's older, I can't always be there to check what she eats. She eats the greasy pizza at her school's cafeteria, she trades her lunch with her classmates, she goes out with her friends and stops to eat at KFC, and so on. And it always ends with her in the ER, crying and shaking because she can't stop throwing up. This was the case on this Christmas Eve as well, when our whole family gathered at our place. And of course, among the many dishes at our Christmas table were some of her main trigger foods, like chips, soda, chocolate, and sweets. Now mind you, these were far from the only foods available to her. We also had a variety of home-cooked, traditional dishes on the table, with ingredients that don't upset her stomach, like vegetables, meat, dairy, etc. All of them delicious and well-seasoned. My daughter herself says she really likes most of these dishes. Despite this, my daughter chose to eat nothing but her trigger foods. I reminded her that they'd make her feel awful, but she said she didn't care, because Christmas is only once a year and she just wants to live a little. Well, this ended with her violently throwing up in the ER a few hours later. She had to be hospitalized for a few days and only just got out of the hospital a few hours ago. And unlike all the previous times when something like this happened, this time I chose to spend my Christmas relaxing at home with the rest of our family, and not in the hospital by my daughter's side. I kept in touch with her through calls and texts, and told her that if she needed anything I'd ask a family member to bring it to her, but I made it clear that I would not be visiting her during her stay. And well, my daughter didn't take this too well. She cried every time we talked on the phone, begged me to come over, told me how horrible I was for abandoning her there all alone, and so on. Most of our family didn't take my side in this either, and during the past few days I got called everything from a little extreme to downright cruel and heartless. Aita, read it? Story 2, Getting Kinky with My Frigid Roommate. I used to rent a room in my old roommate's condo. We generally got along, but he was a bit stingy and would get really anal about certain things that affected me unfairly as a paying roommate. The biggest point of contention was the thermostat. I liked to be comfortable and would keep it at 70, he preferred 65 to save money even though he was well off. I tried to compromise, but it descended into us each moving the thermostat when the other left. Finally, he put his foot down and said it has to stay at 65. Unfortunately for my roommate, I had learned about bimetallic strips that old thermostats use to gauge temperature. Two different metals are back-to-back in a coil. As one expands more than the other, the coil unwinds and turns the furnace on or off. Knowing this, I agreed to keep it at 65. But I didn't agree not to put a teensy, tiny kink in the strip behind the dial to change what 65 meant to the furnace. Several times he thought it's not stupidly cold in here, and started obsessively checking the dial to catch me red-handed. He was so confused when it was exactly at 65 every time. Eventually he started setting it even cooler to compensate. But with a subtle kink here or there I managed to stay comfortable while keeping the peace. Story 3, Aita for firing the babysitter after she let her mom into the house. I recently hired a babysitter a few times over this month. Our kids are ages 5, 8 and 10. The babysitter, who we'll call Gabby, F21, lives just a 10-minute drive from us. Gabby is my co-worker's younger stepsister. She's a student doing a side hustle and lives with her parents. I paid her more than the normal market rate for 3 kids because she agreed to do it on quite short notice. One day when Gabby was babysitting the kids from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., I got an alert of motion detected on our doorbell camera at around 1:30 p.m., and I saw an unfamiliar woman coming into the house. I was super confused and a bit alarmed at first. She was in the house for maybe 15 minutes, then left and sat in her car. I confronted Gabby about it and she said that the woman was her mom, and that she was giving her a ride home. I told Gabby there was no reason for her mom to come into the house and that she can't let other people inside unless it's an emergency. She could have at least texted or called one of us. Gabby told me it wasn't a big deal and that it's just her mom and didn't seem to understand the problem at all and wasn't apologetic. I talked to my husband and we agreed that this was unacceptable and fired Gabby and found another babysitter. My coworker and Gabby are now pissed at me and my coworker said that their stepsister didn't deserve to get fired and they accused us of having a superiority complex. Did we do wrong? Please subscribe and thanks for watching.